discussed in our first class or second class, the Old Testament, the entire Old Testament could be divided into five major sections. The first section is Pentateuch, and the second section is historical books. Okay, and we have a third section called poetical books, and fourth and fifth sessions are prophetical books, and those books are divided into two groups. The first part is the major prophets and the minor prophets. So we have altogether five sections for the entire Old Testament. We will be dividing it into five sections, so five parts, five portions. The first portion is Pentateuch with five books, and then we have the historical books. It starts with um, uh, Joshua and ends with Esther. Okay, we have altogether 12 books in that particular section, and that is called historical books. Okay, and then we have poetical books. Okay, starts from Job till Song of Solomon. Okay, yeah, till Song of Solomon we have poetical books, and then we have the prophetical books from Isaiah till Malachi. Okay, and thus and that particular book or the fourth section we again divide into two. The first part is called the major prophets, and which contain four prophetical books, that is Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, then we have Daniel. Okay, Daniel. These are the four major books or the major prophets, and then the rest of the prophetical books are included in the under the title minor prophets. Okay, so these are the main division, and the first division we have done, and now we are moving on to our next part. It is historical books. Okay, and I think for um, the Hebrews, this book also, these historical books were also considered as part of the prophetical books. Okay, that they considered as early prophets and later prophets. Okay, that was the classification they used to do, but we will be following this the classification which I have already explained. Now, okay, so this historical books we have 12 books in that, starting with Joshua and till we have Esther. We have the historical books, and these particular session or these 12 books covering a history of about 800 years of Israel's history. Okay, the people of Israel. The first four books, or the first, the when you exclude Genesis, and from Exodus till Deuteronomy, you get the history of the people of Israel. Okay, from their what's that? From their coming out of Egypt till coming to the place where they are just about to enter into the promised land. So in the later part of the Genesis, you have details of the formation or the details of the people of Israel, how a generation is formed, or how a particular group of people is formed into a nation. Okay, the preliminary stages of that the people of Israel. That's what we see in the later part of the book of Genesis, and then we have Exodus till Deuteronomy, talking about or giving us the complete history of the people of Israel from the time they depart Egypt and just before entering into the land of Canaan. Okay, so that is in the first part of this Old Testament, and in the second part, of course, okay, this first part it talks about a history of maybe of many years, especially from the time of Abraham till the wilderness journey ends. Okay, it's many centuries of we can include in that. Okay, from the time of Abraham till they enter into the promised land. Now, from the book of Joshua till Esther, you read about the history of 800 years of the people of Israel. Okay, of the 800 years of history. And this particular session or these books talks about, or these books tell us about the conquering of the land of Canaan. That's what we read in the book of uh, Joshua. And then in the book of Judges, we see the reign of Judges and how people of Israel failed to follow the commandments of God even in the beginning stages. And then comes the time of Samuel, and the book of Kings and Chronicles talks about the establishment of a kingship or a kingdom. Okay, the land of Israel or the people of Israel is established into a kingdom. Before that, as I told you, in the later part of the book of Genesis, we have a family. Okay, a family of a particular person called Abraham. He just comes out of the land of Chaldeans, and he just starts his journey from the land of Ur to the land of Haran, or even to the land of Palestine. So there we just see a family, a family with two people, or maybe a few more people. That's just a family. Okay, and when we come to the book of Exodus, and then the rest of the books, the rest of the first 5 books, we see that that small family is grown into a group of people. It still is not a nation, it's a group of people. Okay, and that group of people is categorized as or labeled as slaves. Okay, that's what we understand in the book of towards the last chapters of Genesis, and even in the first chapters of Exodus. Okay, that group of people has turned into a group of slaves. Okay, doing bonded labor in a foreign land. Okay, that's what we see in the book of Exodus. And from there, we see that slaves, or a group of people who were doing bonded labor in a particular foreign land, miraculously come out of that land, and they just travel through the wilderness just as a nomadic people. Okay, there too we don't see any other speciality to that particular group of people. They just travel. They travel from the land of Egypt to the place where their God promised them to take them, because they are traveling that journey, and that journey was through the wilderness. They didn't have a place, they didn't have a own land. Okay, they didn't have a proper place to dwell. Wherever they felt it is okay, they just had the tent and slept over there. And on the next day, if God asked them to start the journey, they start. Okay, so they're just nomads, traveling from one place to another place. They had nothing to own. Okay, that was the speciality of these people throughout the journey, throughout the wilderness journey. Okay, so that entire period, it's of about 40 years. Okay, this 40 years, you see these people as a nomadic people traveling from one place to another, having no land of their own, having no kingdom, no place, no property to own. But when we come to the next level, see, when we come to the next book, we see the people of Israel who were a nomadic people, they just start to form into a nation. Okay. First of all, they become a military power. Under the leadership of Joshua, they become a formidable military power. They start to conquer the land, one by one, cities by cities, and villages by villages. They conquered. Okay, so slowly they start to grow into a nation. So the initial stage we see they are becoming a military power, and they had a potential leader, a great war leader, a great fighter. Okay, a great commander as the leader, and that commander is none other than Joshua. That's what we see in the book of Joshua. And then we just enter into the book of Judges. Okay, they get rulers, okay, or leaders after the time of Joshua, and slowly we see the the development of this particular, or the change of this particular people into an established kingdom. Okay, so by the time we reach the book of Samuel, Kings 1 and 2, and even the Chronicles, we see the people of Israel who just started as just a family of two, now formed into an established kingdom. And then after the book, or even from the book of Kings, or even from the book of Chronicles, we see a decline too. Okay, slowly a group of people, a family of two, grow into a kingdom. Okay, a very powerful military group, a very powerful fighting people. Okay, and then they establish into a kingdom. But after that, we see a decline. Okay, the book of Ruth and even Nehemiah. Okay, Ezra, Esther, in all these books, we see the people come the lowest rungs of the ladder. They come down. Okay, there is a decline. Okay, please.
Okay, sir, I have a question. So you said that under the leadership of Joshua, they were trying to be a nation, right?
Not they were trying, they were becoming a nation.
Okay,
They didn't
so
have to try. God was making them into a nation.
okay, so my question was, so they had their own land, so they were in Canaan at those days, right? Or before that? Just want to clarify it.
What do you
Did
mean
they
by
have
that question?
no? Did they have their own land? Because they were actually traveling, no?
Yeah, under the leadership of Joshua, what happened?
They conquered the Jericho and some
Yeah,
nations. Yeah.
that means they got their own land. Once
Okay.
they got into the promised land
Mm-hmm.
and started to conquer cities after cities, villages after villages,
Mm-hmm.
and once they conquered the property, once they conquered the different cities, those properties or those lands were their own.
Okay, got it.
They occupied it, they got it.
Mm-hmm.
And once they conquered the major portions of the land of Canaan, then they sat together and they started to divide it. Okay?
Got it.
And they divided it. Okay, this belongs to this particular tribe, and this belongs to this particular tribe. So they got it divided for the use as per the directions given by God. So under the leadership of Joshua, they got their own land. Every
Mhm.
tribe and even every family they got. Okay,
Okay,
so of course there's no
understood.
doubt they were growing into a nation. Okay, yeah,
Okay, one more question, if
yeah,
you don't mind. And
Please.
okay, my question is that, as we know that Joshua and Caleb, those are the two people, or entered into the land of Canaan, right?
Hmm.
So how did they divide the land to the 12 tribes?
This we have in that book of Joshua, how the division was done.
Okay.
When with a clear demarcation of the what's that um, um, the limits of each tribe, okay, from where to where,
Mm-hmm.
that was very specifically given in the book of Joshua, and
Mm-hmm.
even in the book of Judges. You can see that.
Okay.
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 It
Thank you.
was very clear. God gave them very clear direction regarding the division of the land, the conquered land, which should go to which tribe, and which portion should go to which family. Okay, God has a very clear instruction for that. And that's what we can read in the book of Joshua. God has given very clear instruction to Joshua how to divide the land, even before that itself. Okay,
So,
they
so their
had
ter
a plan. Yeah,
so,
tell me.
so their territory is not just the Canaan, but outside the Canaan also, divided into the different tribes, right?
If you ask in that way, not even during the time of this Joshua, they couldn't conquer the entire land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, under the leadership of Joshua, it was about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And during this 20 years, they couldn't conquer the entire Canaan.
Okay.
Okay, even after Joshua, there were people, Palestine people, living in that particular land, occupying the land. And the people of Israel had to fight for that, even after the time of Joshua.
Okay.
So even at the time of Joshua, they couldn't conquer the entire land.
Okay.
Okay, so we cannot say the entire Canaan they got divided between them. No, but there were some portions of the land which was outside this land of Canaan. That is, the other side of Jordan. While they were traveling under the leadership of Moses, they were traveling and they got conquered some places beyond this, or the other side of Jordan. Okay, before their crossing over Jordan, they conquered certain lands, and those land, or that land, was divided into three tribes. That is the tribe of Reuben, and then tribe of Dan, and then I think Manasseh. Okay, these two tribes, these three tribes, they got the land which was conquered by these people before they entering into the land of Canaan. Okay, that particular land belonged to the Sihon and Og, the kings, the famous kings, or powerful kings of those days, Kings Sihon and Og.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So that land was conquered by Moses, under the leadership of Moses, and that land was divided between these three tribes. That is Reuben, um, Dan, and Manasseh. Okay, that was of course outside this particular place called Canaan. Okay,
Okay.
Canaan was, of course, it was beyond the other side of Jordan, and these people got their portion on this side of Jordan.
Okay.
So of course, the land they divided included, of course, in the land of Canaan also, and also outside the land of Canaan.
Okay. Got it,
Okay,
sir. Thank you.
hope it is clear. Okay, now. So these people were forming into a kingdom, they were establishing themselves into a kingdom, a powerful kingdom. But slowly, they got a decline. That's what we see. We read in the later part of this book. Okay, so now we are going to. Okay, yeah. It has the establishment of these kingdoms, and then we read the book of Kings and the book of Chronicles. We see the division. Okay, the single nation. Okay, slowly, a family, they grew into a nation, a powerful nation which had control over the neighboring major powers. Okay, so the kingdom was very powerful, but slowly that single nation got divided into two. Okay, the people of Israel got divided into two. The first one, one kingdom was known as the northern kingdom, and the other one was known as the southern kingdom. Or the northern kingdom is usually termed as the people of Israel or land of Israel, and the southern kingdom was termed as Judea. Okay, is that clear? Are you following me? Okay, now that's what we read in the book of Kings and Chronicles. Okay, and now we see towards the end of this Kings and Chronicles, we see the fall of the northern kingdom, and then the fall of the southern kingdom. That's what I said. That's what I said. There is a decline too. Okay, starting with the formation and slowly growing up, coming to the pinnacle. Okay, coming to the top level of the glory, honor, and then they slowly uh, decline, and initially the northern kingdom is got deported, or they went into an exile, the Assyrian exile, and then comes the next kingdom, the southern kingdom is also is gone into a Babylonian exile. Okay, this is what we read in this particular. Okay, when we come to the book of Nehemiah and Ezra, we see a comeback. Okay, so this is what we see throughout in this book. Comeback means they come back from the exile. They were taken into a foreign land as slaves or refugees. They were taken to the foreign land, and after a particular time, they were released and they come back. And their comeback we see and we understand or we read from the book of Nehemiah and Ezra. Okay. This is a small introduction to this historical books, and now we are going um, to look into this book with some more details. Okay. First three books, that is Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. Okay, first three books, Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. These three books we see about, we understand or we read about the possession of the land, and a few things related to that initial stage. Okay, while this land is being possessed or taken over or being divided between them, and something related to this division and this possession. Okay, that is a major content. And during this time, or these three books focus God as focus this society as a theocratic society. Okay, in this, while you read these three books, Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, you see the people of Israel as a theocratic society. What is theocratic society?
Don't know.
What do you mean by theocratic society? What is democratic? Okay, you have the term democracy. Democracy. What is democracy? What is democracy?
Democracy means the people have their own voice.
Okay, people ruling people. Okay, people rule the people. Okay, that is democracy. So, what do you mean by theocracy then? Theo means God.
God
so,
ruling the kingdom.
Ruled by God. Okay. Yeah, Devadipati. Yeah, that's the thing. It's people ruled by God. Okay, rule of God, governance by God, a kingdom ruled by God, completely under the governance of God. So that is what we read. That's what we see while we read the book of Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. Okay, in all these books, the people of Israel it could be identified as a theocratic society, a society which is completely ruled and controlled by God Himself and God alone. Okay, and God ruled them. Okay, but when we come to the book of Samuel, first, second, then Kings, and even Chronicles, we see this society, the people of Israel or the nation of Israel, as a monarch, as a monarch or a king comes into power and he becomes the ruler. Okay, it's become a monarchy. The land of Israel is become a monarchy. Monarchy means mono. Mono. What do you mean by mono?
One.
One. Okay, single ruler. Okay, single ruler, one ruler, monarchy. A kingdom ruled by one person. That means one person means king. Okay, king is the topmost authority. So we see the people of Israel as a monarchy. And in the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, we see the people as a remnant. Okay, there's no kingship or king or kingdom. Okay, everything is gone. Even we can't see them as a theocratic society. They're just a remnants on their path of restoration. Okay, there's a group of remnants. A very few people could be counted on your fingers coming back from the land of exile. Okay, this is a remnants on the way back to restoration or their process of that restoration. That's what we see in the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. Is that
So
clear?
can you
Yeah.
repeat it again? So the book of Judges, we do see that the theocratic society,
Okay. In the book
same
of
time.
Judges and even the other two books like Joshua, even in the under the book of even during the time of Joshua, it was a theocracy, and the Judges' time it was a theocracy, and even Ruth was also the time of theocracy. But from Samuel, during the time of Samuel, they asked for a king. Okay, the people of Israel asked for a king. They said, they went and talked with Samuel and said, as the people around us have a king for themselves, let us also have one to rule us. Okay, the nearby kingdoms or the neighboring kingdoms in our place, they have their own kings. They are ruled by their kings. So we too need somebody to rule us and give us a king. That was their demand to Samuel. From there, we see this people of Israel slowly turn into a monarchy. Okay, of course, the concept is that they are under the rule of God, theocracy, and king rules instead of God or in the place of God. King is appointed to manage the things. But slowly, what we see the king becoming the ultimate ruler, and the people, the land of Israel or the nation of Israel, turn into a monarchy. Okay, with a monarch, with a king. And then we come into the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. When we come to those books, we see even the monarchy is gone. There's no more king. They just become a remnant. A remnant means
Leadership.
leftover people,
Leadership.
a leftover people, a very small number. Okay, a leftover. They just try to come back to their own land. And these remnants are in a foreign land. Okay, these remnants are in Babylon, and they try to come back and try to rebuild the country. Okay, there they don't have any king or they don't have any authoritative people to lead or guide. Certain people, as selected by God or chosen by God, or anointed by God, like Nehemiah or Ezra, they took the lead and formed the people into a holy nation, into a remnant people, and tried to bring them back to the portions which God already has given them. Because that's what we see in the last three books of this particular session. Okay, is that clear?
Clear, Pastor. One more question. So, in at the time of judges, that the God appointed judges over the people, right?
Mm.
So they don't have their own power to rule the people, right?
That's why we said it was theocracy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Just wanted to confirm.
yeah. That's why we call it is theocracy. God was asking somebody to lead them. That's all, nothing else.
Okay.
Okay. And you see many judges, no, none of them took the name king. And somebody was asked to take that title. Okay, you be our king. And they said, no, we are not. I'm not. I'm not your king. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just here to do the wars of God. Okay? During the time of Judges, the main thing the people of Israel had to do was fight with their enemies. They were cornered or they were attacked by the enemies. And whenever they were engaged in a war, whenever they were attacked by the enemy, they had to fight. And the leader was appointed to lead in that fight, just as Joshua was leading the people of Israel.
Okay.
Okay. Just as Joshua was the commander in chief of the people of Israel, God was appointing every judge to lead the people in that fight. And none of them claimed that they were kings, and that none of them were. They were just leading the people, and God was the ruler. And that's why we say the book was, or during those days, the people of Israel was a theocratic society. Okay, now we move on to, we are going to discuss each book in a little more detail. The first book is the book of Joshua, and the author is none other than Joshua, one who replaced Moses after his death. And of course, Joshua had every credibility, every right, or every quality to be a writer, to be the writer of this book, because he has seen how Moses was recording, how Moses was collecting the information and keeping it as a record. Okay, because he was the assistant to Joshua was the assistant to
Moses.
Moses. Okay, so Joshua had an opportunity to have a close walk with Moses and to see what he has been doing. So very clearly, he got the opportunity to see what Moses was doing. What Moses was doing from the beginning, he used to record everything. Okay, the journey, major incidents, and everything he was recording, and the law, and what God talked to him, everything he recorded. Okay, while seeing that, Joshua also followed the same thing, and he could author this book after Moses. And now, of course, there could be somebody else also contributed to this book, as it was the case with the book of Deuteronomy, where Joshua could be the author of the last chapters or last portion of that particular book. The book of Joshua was also contributed by somebody else or someone else other than Joshua, because the death of Joshua was recorded and the rest of the things were recorded. And those things, of course, is not written by Joshua. Is that clear? Hmm?
It's clear. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So The book of Joshua was written by mainly, and majority of the major portions of the book of Joshua was written by Joshua himself, but maybe the last portions could have been written by someone else. Okay, may not be Joshua, because those portions, those part talks about the death of Joshua and the rest of the thing. So after Joshua, somebody could have contributed to that or added to that. Okay. It's about the author and the date of writing. Okay, of course, during the um, reign, during the time of their possession. Okay, and this possession of the land starts from 1400 BC till 1370 BC. It's about 20 to 30 years. Okay, the wilderness journey started 440 or 441, 1440 or 1441. The journey started from the land of Egypt. Okay, it took about 40 years to come to the promised land. That means if they started in 1440, they entered in the promised land at the time of 1400 BC. 1400 BC. Okay, from there, it took about 20 or 24 or 30 years to conquer the land under the leadership of Joshua. So it was from 1400 till 1370 BC. So the book was written somewhere in between. Okay, from 1400 and 1370 BC. Okay. Now, what what do you understand as the purpose of this book? If you have read this book, what do you think of the purpose of this book? Why this book is written? Have you ever read this book? Book of Joshua.
Yep.
Okay. What do you think? Why this book is written?
Continuation after the death of Moses to the promised
Okay.
land.
Okay. Okay. Of course, as the from the point of view of a historian or historical records, we can, of course, we can claim that okay, this was written as a continuation of the history. Okay, the people of Israel and the history was being recorded, and Moses recorded the entire period of his time, and after that, Joshua naturally he was recording the events. Okay, it's part of that historical recordings. That's fine, but more than that, when we view that book from the standpoint of a theological student or a spiritual student, what do you see as the purpose of that book?
We do see that in the new guidances from God, and also God makes strengthen their people, the people of Israel, to the new nations, and to conquer new enemies, and make Joshua as a good leader and a good example for the people.
Uh, okay, but uh, okay, can you narrow down or make your point more sharp?
Now we do. I said, we do see that an unlimited provision from God, and God guided the people into the I mean, the new cities or new nations.
Hmm. Okay, this book of Joshua is a clear example of God, the people of God engaging on a war. Okay, a spiritual warfare. That's what we see in the book of Joshua. Okay, book of Joshua, of course, it's about the history, continuation of the history, God's provision. God is making a man called Joshua a capable leader, and all those things are there. And God provides them, and that too is there. But more than that, we see the people fight for for their promise. Okay, people do engage in a war, and that war is a spiritual one. It's not a physical one. Of course, as the people of Israel, when we see they fight for the property, they fight for the promised land. It could be seen as a physical fight, but when we stand in this New Testament time and we look into it, we should be understanding it as a spiritual warfare where we regain or repossess the promise God has given us, or something which was taken over by Satan. Okay, of course, the land of promise was given to Abraham or the people of Israel. But now, as we see, Caleb, he comes and talks to Joshua, and he says, Joshua, okay, you give me the land of Hebron back to me, and I will conquer the land. And you know what is the speciality of this Hebron?
No.
Okay, Hebron is very special. Why? Because this was the place where Abraham came and settled down for the first. As he started his journey from the land of Ur, traveled through Haran, and came to this land of Palestine, okay, and where he settled down for the first time is this land of Haran. Sorry, this land of Hebron. The earlier days, this particular place was known um, as the garden of garden where or the place where Abraham came and put his tent and lived there. And not only that, this was the place where Abraham purchased a piece of land for the first time. Okay, he paid for a piece of land. The first and last purchase Abraham did. Okay, he purchased a cave, the cave of Machpelah. Okay, that place was purchased as a burial property. So this Hebron is a place where Abraham lived and Abraham purchased. Something which Abraham purchased with his money. So this Hebron is very important. And now this Hebron is not with the people of Israel. A land which was purchased by Abraham. It was not a land which was conquered. A land which he has purchased. He paid for. But even that land is not with the people of Israel now. Okay? That is under the authority of enemies. And now reclaiming that. Okay? Reclaiming the land, reclaiming the promise. So the book of Joshua clearly tells us the war or the fight for the promise. Okay, we have to fight. City by city, they were conquering. And it's not an easy task. They had to fight. They had to go for war. Of course, A leader is there. Unless you have a leader, you can't. Unless you have a strategy, you can't. Unless you have the help of God, you can't. But the main thing is your spiritual war. You are on a spiritual war. And in that spiritual war, you are supposed to regain your portion, which is being conquered by enemy for any reason. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Huh? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
It is clear, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is the main purpose of this book. Of course, it has all other purpose too, as we have discussed. The purpose of recording the history, as well as the plot of uh, 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 Joshua becoming a leader, okay, and how he could lead the people into the promised land. All those explanations are there, even conquering the inhabitants and dividing the promised land as God says, and all those things are there. But more than that, we must see a fight. We must see um, a required fight to get or to regain the promise we have. Okay, now let us go into a brief summary of this book. We can divide this book into three major portions. The first portion is chapter 1 to 12, and 1 to 12 talk about the people of Israel just entering into the promised land. Okay, the initial stage or the initial details of people of Israel entering into the promised land. That is what we read from chapter 1 to 12. And chapter 13 to 22, specifically instructions for the land distribution. The promised land or conquered land is being distributed between different tribes as per God's instruction. And that instruction, we read from chapter 13 to 22. I hope this will answer, Brother John, your question. Okay, from chapter 13 to 22, you have the instruction. Okay, the detailed instruction for dividing the land between different tribes or even different families. Okay, and the last portion, that is chapter 23 to 24, it's about Joshua's farewell address. Okay, so that is what we read. That is what we understand from this book of Joshua. Okay, this is about, as I told you in the beginning, it's about 20 years or more of the people of Israel. The history of about 20 or more years, maybe 20 or 25 years of Joshua's leadership. Okay, and that's what we read the book of Joshua. Okay. Now, one major uh, thing, of course, the book of Joshua talks about division, okay, conquering and division, and they conquered the land and they got divided it. But apart from that, have you found anything more important or equally important with this conquering and division? If you have ever read this book. I urge you to read these books, okay? Just before we get into this book, please read. If you don't get a time, if you don't get an opportunity to read it before the class, maybe after the class also you can read. Okay. Yeah.
Is it
Okay.
in the
I have
chapter
a
5?
sorry. Yeah. Tell me. Tell me. Yeah. You read,
Is it in the
please.
chapter 5, verse 2 and 3?
What is that?
Circumcision for the second time.
Okay. Yeah. But that is very important thing that that we read from this book. Of course, apart from the division and conquering, the major one of the major topics or major focus of this book is the people is being get separated for the purpose for which they are called. The people who left from the land of Egypt, they were separated in the sense circumcision was the sign of separation. During those days, circumcision was observed as the clear sign for the separation of the people from the rest of the people. And the people who left the land of Egypt, along with Moses and Aaron, they were circumcised, but all of them got died, perished in the land of wilderness. And once they enter, the people, the next generation, the second generation, when they enter into the promised land, the people were not, the generation was not a circumcised generation. They had nothing to claim as different from the rest of the world or rest of the people. And Joshua was asked to make preparation for getting these people circumcised. And the people got circumcised. That's what we read in the book of Joshua chapter 5. And there we see the shame of Egypt, the reproach of Egypt is rolled away. Okay. And there the circumcision is done. And God says, the reproach of Egypt I had rolled away. That means the people now is very clearly a separate people. And before that separation, they couldn't claim because there was no. They were identical or they were same like the other people. Okay? But once circumcision was done, of course, it was a ritual, but that ritual had rich of meaning. The circumcision was the process of ritual which was given for them to show their separateness. So the book of Joshua pointing to the importance of this separation. You and I are called to be separated. That is very important. When you are separated from the world, that's a time the reproach is taken away. Okay. Many times what happens, we think the reproach or shame of the world from us is taken away when we identify with the world. You get me? The shame of the world, the ridicule of the world will be done with when we identify with the world, right? You just stand with the world, they won't ridicule you. You identify yourself with the world, you don't have any problem or they don't have any problem. That's what we think. But here, it's very clearly says, when you stand separately, that's a time the reproach or the shame is taken away. That is an important spiritual lesson that we learn from this book. It's fine. You follow me? I have a serious concern. Many of you are following, or are you able to get what I try to teach?
Yeah, I got it from my end.
Right, you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I get it.
Okay. Thank you. If you have any problem, please, you feel free to ask. Okay. If you can't follow me, if you can't understand what I'm trying to say, please, there's no problem if you try to hinder or stop me and ask me, Pastor, it's not clear. Can you repeat it? Okay. I will be very happy to explain. And please make sure the things we discuss in the class is clear enough for your spiritual, your future reference too. Okay. So this is very important lesson that we learn from this book. And also another a theological theme of this book. Okay. The book of Joshua presents a theological theme of rest. Okay. This book is obtained after 40 years of after 40 years of please complete it after 40 years of
Exile.
Wilderness journey.
wandering of the people. See, the people, they just started from the land of Egypt.
Egypt,
They were wandering in the wilderness.
wilderness.
Okay. They were struggling in the wilderness. And at the end of this wandering, the end of these struggles, they just got into the promised land, and there we can say they got settled. So it talks about a rest. Okay, that's a major theological theme that we could understand from this book. Okay, so when we compare this to the New Testament, especially we have this idea in the book of Hebrews, okay, chapter 3, verse 7 through 12, and even Paul was also dealing with this idea of rest in a couple of his epistles. Then we see we also have a promise of rest, which we haven't entered yet. We are in a wandering now. We are in a wilderness journey now. And at the end of this wilderness journey, we will be entering into the promise. And that is the rest we are going to enjoy. But if you do not serious about God and his commandments, if we are not serious about the instructions given by God during this wilderness journey, during this wandering, we could fear, we would so what's that? We can't make sure that we will enter in the promise, or we will enter in the rest. The people of Israel, they couldn't. Majority of the people, they were not very much particular about the promise of, about the commandments of God. And they couldn't enter into the promised land. They failed to enter the promised land. They failed to enter the rest. So if we are not sure, we are not particular about, we are not serious about the commandments of God, we may not be able to enter the rest. Okay, the promise is still there. Follow me? You have the promise to enter the rest, but you have to handle the situation well, you have to be very serious with the promise or the commandments God has given. Okay. So the practical application we could develop based on that theological theme, the rest and the failed people to enter in it. So what is the practical lesson which gives us? Strive your level best to enter into the rest. Okay. The God-given rest, the God-promised rest is very much important. And to enter in that, you have to fight your war well. Okay. So this is what we understand. This is what we understand. Thus we learn about the book of Joshua. And now let us turn to the next book, the book of Judges. Okay. Do you think it is okay with the book of Joshua? Is anything more to be explained?
It is
Of
clear.
course, we are not going to do a detailed study. We are just doing a survey. Okay, yeah, please ask.
No, it is clear to me.
Okay. Now, let us move to the next book. It's book of Judges. Okay, its author is not mentioned, and the Jewish tradition, okay, the Hebrew tradition claims it's written by Samuel. Okay, the book of Judges is written by Samuel. That is the Jewish tradition claims. Okay, we shall also follow that tradition because we don't have much information regarding who is the author of this book. Okay, and so we follow the traditional concept of Jewish people, Rabbinic people, or the Pharisees and scribes who consider the book of Judges was written by Samuel. Okay, it could have been written between 1045 BC to 1000 BC. Okay, it's considered to be written somewhere between 1045 BC and 1000 BC. Okay. The purpose, before we study the purpose or we look into the purpose of this book, when we try to find out the purpose, we could divide this book into two portions. The first one is chapter 1 through 16, and the second portion is chapter 17 through 21. Okay. 1 through 16 is the time when God appointed judges ruled the nation, ruled the people. Handpicked judges picked by God, handpicked by God. Okay. They were selected, appointed, and anointed to lead the people. So from chapter 1 through 16. Okay, is the explanation or history of the people of Israel was ruled by judges appointed by God. And there we see, when we see that portion from chapter 1 through 16, whenever they disobeyed, God punished them. And whenever they cried unto the Lord, God gave them a deliverer. Okay. Whenever they disobeyed God, God punished them. And whenever they cried unto the Lord, okay, God gave them a deliverer, a ruler to save them, to deliver them from the enemies. Okay, that's what we read from 1 through 16. And the second portion from 17 to 21, it's a very pathetic situation of the people of Israel when there was no king. And it says, during those days, as there was no kings, they did as it is pleasing to themselves. A, a clear sign of anarchy, a clear sign of godlessness. Okay. There was no king, no one to guide them, no one to lead them, no one to question them. They lived as they wished. So the book of Judges, when we read the entire book, we could see the purpose as the life under God's control and the life under no control. You got it? When you are under the control of God, God-given leaders are there, God-given rulers are there, commandments are there, instructions are there, guidelines are there, you have to obey. But when you are control of none, when you are under control of none, nothing is applicable. You can live as you like. And you read the book of Judges, and when they lived as they wished, it resulted in wiping out a tribe completely. You know what I was trying to say, what I was trying to explain? Do you know the episode of the tribe of Benjamin? Okay, the book of Judges, one particular incident is explained about the tribe of Benjamin. What happened to the tribe of Benjamin? Okay.
Think there is a war.
Yeah, the entire people of Israel, they went on a war against this tribe of Benjamin, and it was almost wiped out. Okay. And that was because they lived their life under no control. They lived as they wished. Okay, and the situation developed and ended up in a particular state that the entire people of Israel is fighting with a particular tribe, and that tribe is almost finished. So that is what we understand about the book of Judges. Okay, and this book of Judges gives us a history of 330 years of the people of Israel. Okay, a total of 330 years of Israel's history. It's from 1383 to 1052. So it's a long time of 3,300 years. Sorry, 330 years of the people of Israel. Okay, after the death of Joshua and his contemporaries, the people of Israel were without a leader. And as there was no one to guide them or lead them, they slowly slipped into idolatry. And whenever they indulged themselves in this idolatry, because God loved them more, God gave them leaders to bring them back. Okay, and on. God sent his own people, his own chosen people, to bring the people back to a relationship with God. And that happened. We have all about 12 judges during this span of 330 years. Okay, 12 judges we could see, and they every one of them tried to bring people back to a meaningful relation with God. Okay. You don't try to see this book of Judges as just as a military kind of thing, or a leader come into the leadership and do a fight, do a war, and people and lead that people into victory. Not only that, that particular leader was sent to bring people back to a healthy relation with God. You get me? You get my point? The people of Israel was given these leaders or these judges not just to give them a victory over an enemy attack, but to bring them back to a healthy relation with God. That's what we see the book of Judges, and the most important and the powerful judge we see in this book is, any guess? We have altogether 12 judges and their life.
Samson.
Samson, yeah, of course. Samson is the most powerful one we see, and who ruled for about 40 years. Sorry, 20 years. Sorry, 20 years. Okay, who ruled the people of Israel for 20 years. Okay, so in this particular book, when we read, we very clearly understand God's anger against disobedience. Of course, there's no doubt. Whenever the people disobey God, whenever the people disregard Him, God was angered. Okay? He became very furious, and He handed over these people into the enemy. But at the same time, when the people cry out, we see the other aspect of God, the compassion, the loving God. Of course, judges have some of the incidents we can never digest. Okay, some of the cruel incidents of all time. Okay, some of the ungodly events of all time we can see from the book of Judges. But we can't negate the fact, on one side, when we see the anger of God, the strictness of God, the holiness of God, on the other side, we see the limitless compassion, boundless compassion of God towards His people. Whenever they were in problem and whenever they cried out, God showed His compassion by sending His selected servants to lead or bring these people out of the danger. So this book talks about God's holiness, okay, God's righteousness, His strictness towards unholy living, how strictly handle people who lead uh, uh, a life which is unworthy, and how He handled the idolaters. But at the same time, whenever people repent and cried out, God showed His mercy. God sent His compassion. That is what we understand. That is what the theology we get from this book of Judges. So the practical lesson could be, if that is the theology of this book, what could be the practical lesson? What should we be learning from this book, if this is the theology? The practical lesson is live a life worthy unto God because He loves us the more. Okay? God's love cannot be taken for granted. He loves us, but don't take that love for granted. Lead a life worthy and holy. And discipline of God is the sign that He loves us. Okay? We see the people of Israel is being disciplined, strictly disciplined. And it's not because that God doesn't love them. He disciplined them because He loved them more. And you and me are disciplined because we are loved the more than anything else. So again, let me tell you, don't take that love for granted. If we are faithful, God will be faithful. Even if we are unfaithful, God cannot be unfaithful. God is faithful always. But He would deal with sin and unholiness very strictly. That's what we see from this book. Is that okay? Okay. Now, let us move to the next book. It is the book of Ruth. After Judges, we have the book of Ruth. Again, the author is unknown. As the Jewish tradition, could be written by Samuel. Prophet Samuel is the author of this book, also considered to be the author, okay, as per the tradition of the people of Israel or Jewish tradition. Okay, the exact time and date of the writing of this book is uncertain, and the view the major view is that it has been written between 1011 BC and 931 BC. 1011 BC and 931 BC. Okay. The other books, whether it is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, or even Joshua, Judges, everything was a history of the people of Israel. But when we come to the book of Ruth, of course, we have some historical events or some circumstances, backgrounds, but the story, the main focus is not an Israelite, not a prophet or a priest or a ruler. It's a widow from a nearby nation or a Moabite lady, a Moabite widow is the key player of this book. But the main focus of this book is Ruth, a foreign lady. As per her credentials, she was not allowed to come into the presence of God for many generations. You get my point? Israel had, of course, they had different regulations and instructions given by God, and in that regulations, once it is said, the people from from certain tribes, certain uh, people, certain nations. They were not allowed to come to the presence of God even for many generations. When 10th generation people are not allowed to get into the presence of God. But here we have a lady from such a tribe. Okay, Ruth from Moab, Moabite lady. She, as per the regulations, not allowed to come to the presence of God, but she became the part of the genealogy of Jesus himself. That is the story of Ruth and the book of Ruth. So it teaches about genuine love and uncompromising devotion to God. What Ruth showed was genuine love. Okay, of course, because of certain situations, this Naomi and her husband and two boys, they went and lived in that particular Moabite land. And there, these boys, they happened to get married to foreign ladies. And you see, the husbands all died. Even Naomi's husband died. These two, Ruth and Orpha, both of them lost their husbands, and three of the ladies, they lost their husbands. And while the mother was about to come back, return to her own land, this daughter-in-law, she comes and tells, I'm not going to separate from you anymore. I'm not going to have a life without you. Where you live, I live. Where you die, I die. Who is your God? That God is mine. Who is your people? That people is mine. Which is your land? That land is mine. What do we see there? Such a love. We can't see such love nowadays. A love between a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law. And not only that, when she came to the land of Israel, we see her undevoted, uh, um, her complete devotion towards God, whom she chose to obey or whom she chose to follow. Of course, this God was not her God before. She had a different God. She is from a different tribe or different group of people. They had a different God and different worship style, worship systems are there. But she chose to worship this God, God of her husband or God of her mother-in-law. And thereafter, what she shown was the undevoted, undivided devotion. What she has shown is undivided devotion. And never ever she tried to compromise. So that's what we see in this book of Ruth, and that's what the purpose of this book too, showing that unconditional devotion and uncompromising love, the depth of that love that we see. Even we see love between people, not only people loving God and God loving people. Here we see the love which bring a family strong, relations strong. Love between Ruth and her mother-in-law. How strong is that love? And that strong love built that family. Okay, that's what we see in that book. And okay, of course, it's a very simple book which we can read and understand the story. Its description is given as a story, so it's very simple. And I told you this Ruth determined to follow her mother-in-law Naomi and came back to the land of Israel, and there she happened to be wife of Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, and then she got into the lineage of Jesus. Okay, that's a story. Now, the major theological theme we see in this book is the Redeemer, the kinsman redeemer. Okay, Boaz is the redeemer there, and we have the Redeemer, Jesus Christ, who redeemed us from the effect of sin. Okay, so this is all about the book of Ruth, and the rest of the thing we will discuss in our next class. Okay, hope the things we have discussed is clear, and if you don't have any question, let us stop today's class with a word of prayer.
Yeah, it's clear today.
Okay, yeah. Let us close with a word of prayer. Any volunteer to pray and conclude? Someone just give a word of prayer and shall we close this session.
Heavenly Father, we come in your presence. We thank you for your word.
Thank you, Jesus.
We thank you for all your provisions, and we thank for the you open all the word for us today, Father Lord. And we bless everyone who gathered here in this
Yes, Lord.
platform. We bless our pastor. We bless our brothers and sisters, and come in your presence, Father Lord. And in your name
Thank
we
you,
pray.
Jesus.
Thank you. In
Amen.
Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, God bless you.
Thank
God
you,
allows,
Pastor.
we'll
Thank
meet
you,
in the next
Pastor.
class.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor.
God bless.